Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome back to Panda AudioBooks, your sanctuary for ancient magic and the pursuit of the hidden truth. Today, we continue Su Ming's trek into the heart of the unknown in chapters 211 through 215 of Pursuit of the Truth. The Shaman Woods are no longer just a destination, they have become a trial. In a land where power is drawn from spirits and totems, Su Ming must look beyond his berserker instincts to survive. The whispers in the trees are growing louder, and they are calling his name. Clear your mind. The path deepens with Chapter 211. Chapter 211, Lord Divine General. The expression on the woman's face immediately changed. She had heard of Mo Su's name when she arrived in Han Mountain City, and knew that there were 6 powerful transcended berserkers in Han Mountain City. Among the 6, besides the deceased Shen Lun and Yun Zong, who was rumored to have gone out to isolate himself and train, she also met Nan Qian, Ling Ying, and Ku Jusai before. Nan Qian and the other 2 were nothing to her, and it was even more so for the deceased Shen Lun. When she first heard of the 6 transcended berserkers, she was only interested in the person called Mo Su. This person was incredibly mysterious and wore a black mask. It was rumored that his power was incredibly great, and it was even hinted that he was the leader of the 6. He was also a guest in Tranquillise tribe, and once the hidden grounds of Han Mountain were open to the public, he was the only who retained his status as a guest when the 3 tribes dismissed all their guests. This was how the world worked. The more mysterious something was, the more easily the people's curiosity would be sparked. This was how it was for the woman. However, that curiosity did not last long, it was placed aside soon after. To her, it did not matter whether Mo Su was mysterious or not. He had absolutely nothing to do with her, and they were from 2 completely different worlds. She did not expect that the Mo Su that had sparked her slight interest would appear before her in this manner on this day at this very moment. The sounds of the excitement from Han Mountain City traveled into her ears. The waves of sounds were getting stronger with each passing moment, until it eventually tumbled around in all directions and created a buzzing in the air. In Han Mountain City, the crowd that had been drinking with Su Ming previously all had their mouths hanging open. Su Ming had given them too much surprise, and now with the surprising reveal that he was actually Mo Su, their shock had already reached an unimaginable level. His Mo Su. No wonder he has such great power. I had thought he was. The man named Yun looked at Lake of Colors Mountain quietly, and a baffled look appeared on his face before he shook his head. His Mo Su. The elder of Puqiang tribe took a deep breath on Puqiang Mountain. He was not unfamiliar with Mo Su's name. Even if he had never met him before, their people had indeed investigated this person in the past. However, their investigations did not bear too many answers. They only knew that this person suddenly became the guest of Tranquillise tribe and also suddenly disappeared without a trace in the hidden grounds of Han Mountain City. His fame was mostly due to Lake of Colors tribe and Tranquillise tribe's deliberate actions to make him famous. However, he had also asked Shen Lun about him, and he had obtained an answer for his question. Mo Su should be a powerful transcended berserker. However, due to injuries, that was why his power had fallen to the blood solidification realm. Yet even so, Shen Lun himself did not have too much confidence in obtaining complete victory over him. Compared to the uproar around them, Tranquillise Mountain still remained silent. However, that silence did not last long before an old voice traveled forth from the mountain. There was a hint of respect in that voice as it reverberated in the air. Tranquillise tribe congratulates Kindred Mo for obtaining the right to enter Freezing Sky Clan. When all around was alit with excitement, Lake of Colors Mountain fell silent. Han Fei Zi looked at Su Ming, and also at the mask on his face, with mixed feelings. This was the first time she had seen Su Ming's true face. After Shen Lun died, she was the only person who knew Su Ming had an incredibly valuable treasure on his person. Should I call you Su Ming, or Mo Su? Han Fei Zi asked softly. Yang Luan was feeling even more conflicted. She looked at Su Ming with a dumbfounded expression and recalled all the things that had happened in the isolation grounds of Han Mountain's ancestor. She remembered how she had wanted to take this man as her mate, his soft words when he looked at her just now, and how her heart had mysteriously trembled. Red suddenly appeared on Yang Luan's face. Su Ming did not answer Han Fei Zi's question. He merely looked at the woman from Freezing Sky Clan coldly. The woman remained silent for a moment before letting out a cold snort. I see. So you're Su. You passed the first test. However, we still have the second test. You have to challenge the chains of Han Mountain. Before the relocation rune is fully activated, you must clear it, or else you'll still fail, the woman stated with a cold sneer. Due to the mask Su Ming wore, no one could see his expression. However, his eyes were serene. It was as if the woman's words did not cause any surge of emotion within him. And will there also be a third, fourth, and fifth test? Su Ming asked in a placid tone. His calm demeanor made the woman unhappy. She was representing Freezing Sky Clan to receive disciples this time, even if it had already been decided that they would only take in one disciple. However, as long as she was representing Freezing Sky Clan, all those who met her had to be respectful towards her. Some of the people would even be fearful of her. Only this Su Ming did not regard her with importance. Even if she was clearly making things difficult for him, he still remained unruffled. By just taking out a mask, he rendered her first test a complete joke. When she heard his question, the woman's smile grew colder, and she decided not to hide her intentions any longer. She spoke in a frosty tone. Freezing Sky Clan is not a place that any person can enter. Even if you've cleared the chains of Han Mountain and finished the second test, there's still the third test. For the third test, you have to prove that you transcended only after you have attained completion during the blood solidification realm. But you've already transcended, so you can't prove it. Su Ming was silent. When she saw Su Ming remaining silent, contempt seeped into the woman's smile. If you really have the ability to provide me solid and believable proof to show me the amount of blood veins you had when you transcended, there will still be a fourth test. The fourth test is very simple. You have to sound Han Mountain Bell. But it's a pity. That bell is no longer here. It was taken away by a divine general of transcendence. Go take it back. If you can complete these 4 tests before the relocation rune is fully activated, then there will be no problem for us to take you into Freezing Sky Clan. If you can't, then leave now. Stop bothering us. You won't be able to withstand the wrath of Freezing Sky Clan. Right at the moment the woman finished speaking, Lake of Colors Mountain suddenly trembled. Piercing rays of light shot from within the mountain and merged into one single, blinding ray of light at the summit, looking as if it was about to turn into a gigantic rune. Looks like you don't have a chance anymore. The relocation rune has activated. In 10 breaths, it'll be fully activated. The woman smiled and no longer looked at Su Ming, but turned her gaze instead towards the rapidly forming relocation rune. Then will it be enough if I use this identity as well? Su Ming asked unhurriedly. The moment he spoke his words, the woman was immediately stunned. At the moment she turned her head back to look at Su Ming, she shuddered, and disbelief appeared on her face. She instinctively took a few steps back, and all the blood on her face drained away in an instant. You. Even the man who had been staying silent by the side but had been laughing coldly in his heart felt his expression drastically change. He sucked in a sharp breath and looked as if he was struck by lightning. His mind became blank. They were not the only ones in that state. At that moment, all the people on Lake of Colors Mountain were completely stunned that very instant, and all their emotions were replaced with shock. Lightning thundered, and lightning arcs swam around Su Ming's body. The lightning sparks glowed with a blue light, and while it exuded a strange presence, it also symbolized one thing. Su Ming lifted his right hand and bell chimes could be heard from the center of his right palm. There was a bell that gave an old and aged presence resting on his palm. It floated upwards and grew rapidly in mid-air. Its appearance also symbolized one thing. Lord Divine General. An uproar filled with cries of surprise of an intensity that was never heard before rose from within Han Mountain City. Chapter 212. Have a safe journey. His origin transcended vessel is lightning. That's exactly what Lord Divine General refined that day. That's Han Mountain Bell. Lord Divine General took that bell away on that day. He's indeed Lord Divine General. This is unbelievable. Lord Divine General and Su are one and the same. All the people in Han Mountain City had already fallen into a state akin to frenzy. All the things that happened this day had made them shocked, but none of the shock they felt was comparable to the shock they felt at this moment. The Lord Divine General that was ingrained deep within the minds of all the outsiders in Han Mountain City, whose presence was like the blazing sun during noon, now appeared before them. He was the Divine General. He was Mo Su. He was Su Ming. Nan Tian's breathing quickened. He looked at Su Ming standing on Lake of Colors Mountain with a dumbfounded expression as his heart raced against his chest. Even if there had been speculations about this deep within his heart, when that speculation came true, he still found it hard to quell the shock in his heart. As expected, he's the Lord Divine General. Mo Su, it's clear that his level of cultivation didn't drop from transcendence to the blood solidification realm due to grave injuries. When I first met him, he hadn't even transcended. He actually managed to intimidate me when his power was only at the blood solidification realm. He, as expected of a divine general. Leng Ying, who was standing beside Nan Tian, took a deep breath. He was not unfamiliar to Mo Su's name, but in his heart, he had never thought that Mo Su was at a level so high that it was impossible for him to measure it. He had even once assumed that this Mo Su, who had been hiding his appearance all this while, did not exist at all. He could have even died somewhere a long time ago. His fame was simply the result of other people's deliberate work. However, once he saw that Su Ming was Mo Su, he was shocked, but before that shock disappeared, he also saw that Mo Su was the divine general that appeared before them just a few days ago. It was as if thunder rumbled in his head, and his mind turned blank. He lost all ability to think and was rendered completely stunned by the turn of events. An outburst with an intensity that was rarely seen erupted from within Han Mountain City. The waves of sound shook the sky and earth. They spread out in all directions and did not disappear. The voices seemed to all be calling out one single title: Lord Divine General. The people who had been drinking with Su Ming in the inn were the most excited as they joined in crying out with the other people. Never in their dreams would they have expected that their brother Su, who had been drinking with them, who had a smile on his face constantly, and the brother Su who spoke rarely, would be Mo Su, and would also be the divine general who had cleared the chains of Han Mountain, refined celestial lightning, and took away Han Mountain Bell in a display of mighty power just a few days ago. Amidst the crowd, the man named Yun stood with respect and fanaticism in his face. He had speculated about this before but hadn't been certain. Now as he watched Su Ming standing at the top of Lake of Colors Mountain, he could not help but recall the scenes of the people drinking together in disappointment on that night. As for his companion, while there was excitement in his heart, he also felt fortunate. After all, during the night 2 days ago, he had been displeased with Su Ming inviting himself to their table. There was also a man and a boy in the crowd. The old man was stunned as he looked at Lake of Colors Mountain. As for the boy, he was standing there stupefied, mumbling words that other people could not hear. Greetings to the Lord Divine General from Tranquil East Tribe. As Han Mountain City was in the midst of their exited uproar, 2 voices traveled out from Tranquil East Mountain. They belonged to the elder of Tranquil East Tribe and Fang Shen. Even the powerful berserkers in their tribe floated into the sky and wrapped their fists in their palms before bowing together to Su Ming above Tranquil East Mountain. Soon after, the same words were echoed from Puqiang Tribe. All the leaders from Puqiang Tribe bowed towards Su Ming together with respect and fear on their faces. Greetings to Lord Divine General from Puqiang Tribe. We did not know of your identity previously and offended you. We hope that you will be able to forgive us. The elder of Puqiang Tribe laughed bitterly. He had said the same words twice to the same person now. At the same time, sounds of respect rose like a wave from Han Mountain City and spread out through the entire area. Greetings, Lord Divine General. Welcome to Han Mountain once again, Lord Divine General. The voices echoed in the air, and as they shook the entire area, they traveled to Lake of Colors Tribe and into the man and woman's ears, causing their faces to turn pale and a loud bang to resound in their minds. Greetings, Lord Divine General. The flush on Yang Wan's cheeks turned redder as she bowed towards Su Ming. Su Ming calmly took off the mask from his face and his gaze fell on the woman from Freezing Sky Clan. In regards to Freezing Sky Clan's second test set, I've already cleared the chains of Han Mountain, Su Ming stated slowly. When his words fell from his lips, the woman's face turned paler. As for the third test, with my identity as Divine General, It's enough to prove that I transcended after attaining completion in the blood solidification realm, Su Ming continued speaking. His voice was not loud, but it landed clearly in all the people's ears in the area. The woman who came from Freezing Sky Clan trembled and staggered a few steps backwards. She looked at Su Ming with a stunned expression, and her mind went blank. Everything was happening too suddenly, and this unexpected situation caused her to be unable to adapt. As for retrieving Han Mountain Bell as the last part of the test, it is here. Su Ming did not speak quickly and remained calm and collected. The instant he finished speaking, the woman looked as if her heart had just suffered 3 heavy blows, rendering her breathless. She opened her mouth as if she was about to say something. However, before she could even speak, a piercing and freezing glare appeared within Su Ming's eyes. Under that cold gaze, her words got stuck in her mouth. I followed all the rules Freezing Sky Clan set, and I fulfilled every request. Now, it is time you give me an answer, he stated coldly. The woman turned pale and helplessness appeared on her face. She instinctively looked at her companion, the man from Freezing Sky Clan. He had a similar panicked look on his face. Once they exchanged looks, the man gritted his teeth and took a few steps forward. There was no longer any hint of pompousness on his face, only anguish and sincerity. He wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed towards Su Ming. I am Chen Yu Bing of Freezing Sky Clan. Greetings, Lord Divine General. I've been deeply regretful that I was unable to see you summoning the deity statue of Transcendence and being awarded the title of Divine General of Transcendence. My lord, you are indeed extraordinary. I am Shu Yu of Freezing Sky Clan. Greetings, Lord Divine General. There was a reason why I have been so disrespectful. My lord, I hope you will not mind. The woman lowered her head and bowed towards Su Ming. There was no longer any contempt on her face. It was replaced simply by anxiety and paleness. We're only outer sect disciples for the left preceptor in Freezing Sky Clan, and we rarely venture out. If we've offended you, please forgive us. This time, our fellow brother Zhao, an inner sect disciple, was supposed to come with us, but because something came up, fellow brother Zhao could not come. Before we came, the left preceptor mentioned that we will only take one disciple from Han Mountain City this time, and it was decided that it would be Lake of Colors Tribe's Han Fei Zi. We don't have the right to decide whether we can take in a second person. That was why we were forced to make things difficult for you. The two of them whispered, pouring out all their thoughts in their hearts. With your power and status as the Divine General, all the schools in the land of South Morning will definitely receive you. If you don't mind, please come back with us to Freezing Sky Clan and the clan elders will make the final decision. The two of us have no right to make any decisions. I grossly exaggerated my words just now. I hope you'll forgive me. Shu Yu bit her bottom lip and whispered entreatingly. Su Ming cast a glance at the man and woman who had changed their attitude so completely, then put away his mask along with Han Mountain Bell. From the moment he knew from Han Kangzi that Freezing Sky Clan was only taking in one person, he had been making all sorts of preparations for the sake of one goal, getting into Freezing Sky Clan. Su Ming had already predicted a long time ago that there was no way that he could be taken as Freezing Sky Clan's disciple in this place. My lord, this way. Chen Yu Bing spoke politely. The relocation rune on Lake of Colors Tribe was already fully activated. The light from the rune was flashing brilliantly. A gigantic ball of light had already gathered in midair. Freezing Sky Clan. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the gigantic ball of light. An eager look appeared in his eyes. He took a deep breath and lifted his foot, but just as he was about to walk towards the light. Fellow brother Chen, senior sister Shu, you won't mind if I use this rune and go back to the school, yes? A soft voice traveled forth from Tranquil East Mountain, and a petite figure also appeared along with that voice. It was Han Kangzi, Fang Kang Lan. She let out a soft chuckle as she walked through the air towards them. Her robes fluttered in the air as she walked like a butterfly. She stopped by Su Ming's side. Once she gave him a smile, she looked at the two people from Freezing Sky Clan. A glint appeared in Shu Yu's eyes. She swept her gaze across Fang Kang Lan and Su Ming before she spoke softly. Junior Sister Fang, you're being far too courteous. We were just about to ask you whether you wanted to come back with us. Fang Kanglan smiled and nodded, then moved closer to Su Ming, making it seem as if they were standing together and looking like they were well suited for each other. When the people saw this, all of them had different thoughts in their heads. Han Fei Zi looked like how she usually did. She did not even look at Fang Kanglan, but was instead staring at Su Ming. Then she walked over calmly until she was right before Su Ming. An enchanting smile appeared on her beautiful face. Han Fei Zi leaned towards Su Ming in a suggestive manner. The moment Su Ming frowned, she whispered breathlessly into his ear, in a tone only he could hear, "Don't forget. You still owe me that promise made under Han Mountain." Chen Yubing let out a fake cough by the side and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming and the other two people. "Brother Su, junior sister Han Fei Zi, junior sister Fang, the rune is working now. Let's go." He could tell that there was something going on between Su Ming and the two women, but he pretended he did not see anything. He only wanted to finish his task quickly. The trip to Han Mountain this time was making him uncomfortable. The five of them slowly moved towards the relocation rune under the gazes of the people from the three tribes and the crowd in Han Mountain. The instant they stepped into the rune, shouts erupted forth from Han Mountain City. "Lord Divine General, have a safe journey. Lord Divine General, if you're ever free, remember to come back and visit us. Lord Divine General, take care. Senior Mo, take care." A weak voice was mixed in these shouts, coming from Tranquil East Mountain. Just as Su Ming was about to walk into the relocation rune, his footsteps faltered and he turned his head back to look at Han Mountain and Tranquil East Mountain. As he did so, he became overwhelmed with emotions. He saw a pale teenager looking at him from Tranquil East Mountain, supported by someone. "I'll be back." Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed deeply towards Han Mountain City. Once he straightened his body, he turned around and a determined look appeared on his face as he stepped into the rune. The instant he did so, an old voice suddenly spoke by his ears. "Boy, do you want to become my disciple?" Chapter 213, The Sagely Veteran. It was as if time itself froze. The rumbling sounds coming from the relocation rune also disappeared instantly, as if they had just gone static. Su Ming turned his head back swiftly and what he saw made his pupils shrink. He cautiously took a deep breath. He saw that everything around him had become completely still. The light from the rune did not move, and neither did the ground. Yet strangely, while Han Mountain still remained in sight, there was no one on the mountain. The three places were still around, but there was no one in them. Even Fang Kanglan, Han Fei Zi, and the others who were around the area just now were all gone. It was as if he was the only person left in the world. As if the moment that old voice appeared in his ears, the world had changed. The world he saw before his eyes had just become empty, a world void of life. This drastic change made Su Ming feel shaken. He could not imagine what sort of power would be required to do this. It was inconceivable in his eyes. "This is the void space I created." The same voice he heard just now spoke up in his ears once again from the distance. An old man dressed in white robes also appeared sitting on Tranquil East Mountain along with the voice. The old man held a pot of wine in his hands and took a big gulp from it before he looked at Su Ming. "Come, let's talk." Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. Once he looked at the old man for a few moments, he cast his gaze around him. There were no signs of life on Lake of Colors Mountain. Besides him and the old man, not another soul could be seen in the area. After hesitating for a moment, Su Ming tried lifting his feet to move out of the rune. Once he did so, he immediately turned back to look at the relocation rune. The light did not move, and the still light made it seem like an illusionary statue. Once he quelled the shock in his heart, Su Ming slowly rose into the air and walked towards Tranquil East Mountain until he eventually stood 100 feet away from the old man. "Come, sit by my side." The old man put down the wine pot and swept his gaze across Su Ming. A hint of praise appeared on his face. Su Ming moved closer to him without a word, and once he was by the old man's side, he decided to just go along with his suggestion and sat down. "Are you curious?" The old man gave Su Ming a scrutinizing look, then lifted his right hand to point at the space before Su Ming. Immediately, the space before him distorted and a pot of wine appeared. "What's a void space?" The moment the wine pot appeared, Su Ming's heart pounded and he looked towards the old man. A void space is a power belonging to those in the bone sacrifice realm. Once most of the bones in a berserker's body have turned into berserker bones, they can communicate with heaven and earth, and from there create their own world. Since it's not real and only an illusion, it's called a void, and since it's formed in the body and is cut off from the world by our flesh and blood, it cannot spread outwards, that's why it's called a space. The old man picked up the wine pot and once he took another mouthful, he looked at Su Ming. My void space is not complete. I can only create the world I see. There are no living things within. Bringing you in here was already a Herculean task. Su Ming was silent. This was the first time he had ever heard of void spaces. Blood solidification, transcendence, bone sacrifice, berserker soul. These are the four great realms among us berserkers. First, you must understand the connotations behind these four great realms. You must understand why they were divided this way, and only then will you be able to reach these realms, the old man said with a smile. It doesn't matter whether you will succeed in becoming my disciple. Our meeting in itself is fate. I can guide you. Now, why is there a word blood in blood solidification realm? The old man looked at Su Ming. Because berserkers inherit powers through blood. Our blood contains the power of the berserker tribe. However, it's very thin, that's why we need to continuously merge it together, only then will that power erupt forth, Su Ming replied softly after a slight hesitation. Correct. From a broad perspective, this is correct. However, you still don't understand its connotations. The old man lifted his right hand and waved it across the sky. With that one single wave, a blood vein shining with piercing red light immediately appeared in the sky. Look closer, I will only show it to you once. When you finish observing it, tell me your answer. This is my first test for you. If you succeed, then I will consider you my honorary disciple. If you fail, then go back from whence you came. The old man cast Su Ming a profound look and waved his right arm in the sky once more. The moment he waved his arm, the blood vein in the sky shook, and several branches appeared on that blood vein, and those branches branched out once again, until eventually there seemed to be countless blood veins right before Su Ming's eyes. However, if he took a closer look, he would find that there was really only one blood vein. The multiple branches that appeared on that one blood vein split up from each other and gathered in the air to form the outline of a person. They shone with a brilliant red light that lit up the entire area. When he saw this, Su Ming took in a sharp breath, feeling as if thunder rumbled in his mind. The blood veins that he thought had disappeared once they turned into his berserker mark appeared once again to cover his entire body. This strange sight made Su Ming shudder. So blood veins don't disappear once we transcend. As Su Ming mumbled under his breath, the figure of the person formed by the blood veins in the sky experienced a change once again. Those blood veins became entwined with each other and gradually pictures of mountains and rivers, the sun and the moon, the stars, plants, and ferocious beasts appeared around him. Every single time one of them appeared, the person formed by blood veins would experience different changes. The veins would move around as if they were trying to match the illusionary pictures around them. The final picture that appeared was of a mountain, a five-fingered mountain, Su Ming's mountain mark. The moment the five-fingered mountain appeared, plants appeared on the surface of the mountain. There were trees, earth, and the entire five-fingered mountain seemed to have come alive. As it continued to be covered, it gradually looked as if it had turned into a real mountain, and was no longer an illusion. Once it completely turned into a physical entity, Su Ming once again saw the mountain fusing with the person made of blood veins, and slowly, he saw that the mountain was one with the person, and the person one with the mountain. The mountain covered every single part of the person made of blood veins, and as if it was a carving on a totem, the mountain seemed to have become the skin for the person made of blood veins. The moment Su Ming saw this, the blood veins that had appeared once again on his body started circulating with a boom. He started trembling furiously, as if he could not control himself. His face immediately turned pale and blood flowed out of the corner of his lips. Weariness filled his heart. This feeling stemmed from the sight he saw, which stirred up the qi within his body. The old man sitting beside Su Ming looked at him and asked slowly, "Do you want to continue?" "Yes." Su Ming gritted his teeth. If anyone said that the person that had fused with the mountain in the air and had the mountain as his skin was a human, then he was a human, but if they said he was a mountain, then he was a mountain as well. A vast and mighty presence spread out from its entire body and turned into a gigantic pressure that covered the entire land. Soon after, a golden piece of bone appeared within the body. More pieces of bones gradually appeared, and after a moment, a complete spine was formed. It did not end there. Once the spine appeared, a complete skeletal frame formed in the body as time passed by. He had the form of a person, a skeleton, flesh, and blood. This was a complete human being. However, he had no soul, no spirit. This person had his eyes closed and could not seem to open them. Su Ming could sense a void within his body, as if he was in deep sleep and could not wake up. If he opens his eyes, then he'll obtain the Berserker soul, the old man stated calmly. He placed his right hand down, and the instant he did so, the person in the sky twisted and blended into nothingness. I will wait for your answer here. The old man closed his eyes. Su Ming was looking at the spot where the figure had disappeared in the sky dumbly. The images he saw resurfaced in his mind. After a long while, he closed his eyes. Time trickled by slowly. The sun, moon, and the stars did not move in the void space. It was as if time itself had frozen. The old man's eyes remained shut and he did not open them. He had enough patience to wait for Su Ming's answer. Yet before long, the old man opened his eyes and looked toward Su Ming. Su Ming remained still, but the blood veins that had previously appeared on his body were shining brilliantly, and among them, two had even fused together. A surprised look appeared in the old man's eyes as he watched the two fused blood veins. What great intelligence! Once the two blood veins fused together, the fusion speed for the other blood veins abruptly increased and they blended together. After a few hours and under the old man's praising look, all the blood veins within Su Ming's body became one. That one blood vein glowed in a brilliant shade of red and slowly surfaced on Su Ming's face. Once it turned into the five-fingered mountain mark, it crept down his neck. Once the old man saw this, he was stunned. His Berserker mark is the mountain and he had now truly completed blood solidification, so why is it still spreading down? The blood veins were hidden under Su Ming's robes. They spread towards the bloodlines Su Ming had drawn on his body, and once they finally turned into the complete Berserker mark, the old man widened his eyes in shock. He took a sharp breath and no longer cared about maintaining the appropriate demeanor for his status. He lifted his right hand and waved it towards Su Ming, and immediately, Su Ming's robes covering his upper body disappeared, revealing to the old man the complete Berserker mark he had drawn on his body. Dark Mountain Tribe. The moment the old man saw the Berserker mark, he sucked in a sharp breath and was stunned. He had seen countless Berserker marks in his life, and among them, some were rather complicated. However, he had never seen a Berserker mark that was as complex as the one on Su Ming's body. Is this still a Berserker mark? This boy is even crazier than I am. The old man muttered under his breath, shocked. I had thought that he activated the sound of soul creation with his entire Berserker mark. But by the looks of it, the mountain mark that triggered the sound of soul creation is just part of the Berserker mark. This sort of Berserker mark will either never develop and turn into a mixed mark, or it will grow, and its power will shock the entire Berserker tribe. What exactly happened that day after I left? The old man was in slight disbelief and started regretting leaving so abruptly in disappointment that day. Regret filled his face, but he immediately noticed it and changed his expression instantly, turning that regretful look into his previous mysterious and smiling expression. He waved his right hand before Su Ming's body, causing his robes to appear once again, before he let out a fake cough and put on the look of a veteran as he looked at Su Ming. At that very moment, Su Ming slowly opened his eyes. There was a sharp glint in them, and they showed understanding. Chapter 214. Wine, Water. Ahem. Since you're awake, then tell me the answer. Your answer will determine whether you can become my honorary disciple. The old man coughed once again and lifted his hand to stroke his beard. His demeanor, that of a learned veteran, coupled with the shock he brought upon Su Ming, made Su Ming unable to find anything wrong with his actions. The four great realms, blood solidification, transcendence, bone sacrifice, and Berserker soul, are all centered around the word creation. Su Ming took a deep breath and stated slowly, "To create from nothing is the underlying meaning of these four great realms. This creation is centered around the Berserker mark. All our Berserker marks are different, that's why what we create is also different, but in the end, it's still centered around the word create. It's just as I saw just now. With just one blood vein, a person who looked like a mountain was created," he mumbled. He was in shock. Only then did he understand the principle of his path. He had even noticed that during the unknown amount of time that had passed, once he truly fused all his blood veins in his body and blended them into his Berserker mark, while he might still be in the initial stage of the Transcendence realm, the power he had in his hands now seemed to have become much greater. It was a feeling of having completely broken off the blood solidification realm and having truly entered the Transcendence realm. In fact, due to his actions just now, his powers of the initial stage of the Transcendence realm had reached their peak, as if he was not far away from the middle stage of the Transcendence realm. All of these were because this old man had given it to him. When the old man heard it, the praise in his eyes grew stronger. "That's right, if you can understand this, then you're qualified to enter the school and you fit your status of a divine general of transcendence. The word creation is the quintessence of us Berserkers. We can cast creation arts from 1 creation, 10 creations, 100 creations, right up till we reach endless creation. The final creation art, eternal creation, is the art belonging only to God of Berserkers. There are countless other worlds in this universe, and there are also all types of practitioners. There are differences between all of us, but only us Berserkers walk the path of creation. Once we reach the peak of the bone sacrifice realm, we can create our very own statue of the God of Berserkers. You passed the first test." The old man's smile died down and a solemn look appeared on his face. "Su Ming, I am Xianxia. I stay in Freezing Sky Clan and am one of Freezing Sky Clan. However, I don't practice the arts of Freezing Sky Clan. I've never taken in any disciples before. There were a few that made me want to take them in as my disciples, but they were ultimately not suitable. You already caught my attention when you transcended. In fact, when you were searching for your Berserker mark in your trance, I was also there," Xianxia stated slowly, looking at Su Ming. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the old man. He did not suspect his words. "Right now, you have 2 choices. 1, everything will proceed the way it's supposed to. You will go to Freezing Sky Clan and I will speak for you. Then you can become a disciple in Freezing Sky Clan. Since you gained the title of Divine General of Transcendence, Freezing Sky Clan will surely pay a lot of attention to you. You'll definitely become an inner sect disciple. In fact, some of the old-timers in Freezing Sky Clan will choose you as their disciple. You'll be the same as Sima Xin and become a prodigy in Freezing Sky Clan. As for your future, it'll depend on your own luck. 2, give up on entering Freezing Sky Clan and become my disciple. While I am in Freezing Sky Clan, you will also be there. If I leave, then you will have to leave with me. If you become my disciple, you can stay in Freezing Sky Clan, but you can't become a disciple of the school. You won't be able to receive the same treatment as other disciples. Still, if you accept me as your master, then you'll understand someday that Freezing Sky Clan is nothing. However, if you want to become my disciple, then you have to go through a second test. Only if you pass it will I take you in." Xianxia spoke sternly, and his words were laced with an air condescension towards Freezing Sky Clan, along with pride. Nonetheless, when he saw Su Ming falling into pensive silence, as if he was weighing his options, he became nervous. If he had not seen Su Ming's Berserker mark, he would not have minded this, but it was different now. The old man let out a fake cough and quickly said, "Ahem. Su Ming, I've already helped you once. Your power must have increased. If you become my disciple, then things like these will happen again." Su Ming remained silent. "You have to think carefully. I'm incredibly protective of those important to me. If you become my disciple, then you'll gain a lot of benefits, but if you refuse..." The old man let out a harumph, and he also felt helpless. Taking in disciples was an important event. He could not force Su Ming into it. "What sort of benefits?" Su Ming lifted his head and asked calmly. "Many. Xianxia felt slightly guilty and let out a bark of laughter to hide his emotions. He was a sly person, and he was confident Su Ming would not be able to see through his disguise. I have plenty of berserker vessels in my abode. You're my only disciple, so you'll be able to choose whichever you like. I also have all the scrolls of the arts in Freezing Sky Clan. Even if you don't join it, you can still learn the arts, and the clan can't say anything about it because you'll be my disciple. Let me think. I also own a mountain as my compound. I have my own cave abode, so if you become my disciple, I can immediately create your own cave abode next to mine. I also have close acquaintances in Great Yu Dynasty. When you go there to receive your rewards as the Divine General, I can go with you. Also, let me think. If you become my disciple, then your status will immediately change. The relationship between me and Freezing Sky Clan may be a little complicated, but I'm considered one of the seniors in Freezing Sky Clan. Once you acknowledge me as your master, then you'll have the same status as the head preceptor. Those lasses will have to call you Uncle Master. Anyway, you'll have a lot of benefits. Oh, and I have a lot of valuable ancient scrolls. I have everything in there, including the map of the land of South Morning. It definitely won't lose to Freezing Sky Clan's map. After all, I've gone to far too many places. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, but he maintained his silence through the old man's chattering, then nodded once he finished. All right, please tell me the second test. Xianxia's spirits lifted up and his smile grew wider. He pointed towards the wine pot before Su Ming. I brewed this pot of wine personally over a long period of time. Even the left and right preceptors of Freezing Sky Clan can't drink it. Why don't you try it? Su Ming looked at the wine pot before him. Without any hesitation, he picked it up and took a mouthful. He knew that with the old man's power, if he wanted to harm Su Ming, he had no need to make it so troublesome. However, the moment he drank it, Su Ming was stunned. Water. He looked towards the old man. It's wine. There was the ghost of a smile on the old man's lips. He stood up with a delighted look. Su Ming frowned. His gaze landed on the wine pot in his hands and he fell into a contemplative silence. You passed the second test. Let's go. Come with me back to Freezing Sky Clan. We'll go home now. The old man laughed boisterously and moved forward. He walked in front of Su Ming, hence he did not see Su Ming, who was holding the wine pot, shudder when he heard the words going home. He lifted his head and cast the old man a profound look. Not even I know what's in the wine pot. I might have brewed it, but I fused my creation art in there. The taste is different for everyone. Sai Martian drank it once, and he said it was bitter. 3 other people drank it, and they also tasted something different. When I drink it, I'll feel that it's wine. You're the only one who said it's water. This answer corresponds with how I'm feeling today. That's why from now on, you will be my only disciple. Xianxia was walking in front when he turned around and smiled at Su Ming. Su Ming was stunned, then he smiled bitterly. He walked with Xianxia in the air and gradually left. As they did so, the sky and earth in the void space started twisting, eventually turning into an illusion that disappeared along with Su Ming and Xianxia. The light from the relocation rune reached its peak on Lake of Colors Mountain. It was letting out loud rumbling sounds. The earth shook, as if there were layers of invisible force gathering from all directions and surging towards the relocation rune, erupting forth from the summit of the mountain and turning into a rune that shone outwards. The light was glaring and enveloped all of those within the rune. Su Ming trembled and snapped out of his daze. A pot of wine had appeared in his hands some time ago. The appearance of this wine pot baffled him. Everything that had happened in the void space had only lasted an instant outside. Void space. Su Ming lowered his head and looked at the wine pot in his hands before he drank from it. Besides the rumbling from the rune, he also heard the people shouting their farewells from all around Han Mountain. Gradually, all those outside the rune saw it letting off a brilliant flash on Lake of Colors Mountain, causing the vision for all those watching to be blinded for that instant, and the world in their eyes turned dark. The light dissipated from Lake of Colors Mountain. Only faint sparks remained before they scattered and quickly fused into the air, disappearing without a trace. They left. Nan Qian sighed softly in Han Mountain City. There was a moved but conflicted look on his face. He shook his head. I wonder just how much further apart our powers will be when we meet again. Perhaps we'll never meet again. By his side, Leng Ying quietly looked at the Lake of Colors mountain that had lost the light from the relocation rune. A determined look appeared in his eyes. He's finally gone. The elder of Puqiang tribe let out a sigh of relief. Nonetheless, he knew that he would never forget that a divine general of transcendence once appeared in Han Mountain, in this place, and with this method, he entered Freezing Sky Clan. Fang Mu lowered his head on Tranquil East Mountain. His father stood by his side. The man's mouth opened as if he wanted to say something, but Fang Mu did not look at him. Instead, he walked away with his head lowered, as if he did not want to talk to his father. Fang Shen let out a quiet sigh. As the envoys from Freezing Sky Clan left, Han Mountain gradually calmed down. Some people left, and some people chose to stay. The people in the inn were the same. Yet no matter what, when Freezing Sky Clan came once again to take in disciples, some of them might meet each other again. Then they would drink together and talk about this miracle. It was especially so for the people who had drunk with Su Ming. They might even say with pride that there was once a Lord Divine General called Su Ming here and speak of his stories. Chapter 215. Sky Mist Barrier. The land of South Morning was so huge it seemed endless. Even if people reached the Transcendence Realm, few could manage to travel through the entire land. This place was simply too big. Some people had made rough calculations about how long it would take for a transcended berserker to cross the land of South Morning and stated that they would need at least 100 years to do so. That was discounting the dangers that the person would encounter during his or her journey. There were also an infinite amount of fierce beasts in the land. These beasts could even hold their own against those in the Berserker Soul Realm. Even those in the Bone Sacrifice Realm would need a long period of time to cross the land of South Morning, and they would also have to be careful. The land of South Morning is separated into two regions, and the Sky Mist City acts as the border. The city was built by Freezing Sky Clan and Western Sea Clan. It has been around for thousands of years. It's built on a mountain which eventually turned into a barrier that surrounds South Morning. Chen Yu Bing from Freezing Sky Clan stood on a mountain enveloped in a golden light in a direction leaning towards the north of the land of South Morning. He looked in the distance and spoke languidly. Sky Mist City is divided into a capital city and 9 other prefectural cities, and the border city acts as the barrier separating the inner parts of South Morning from the outer parts. It is also due to this barrier that the wild beasts and shamans in the outer parts of South Morning cannot get into the inner parts of the land so easily and massacre the people there. The man named Chen pointed forward. They could see a mountain range that looked like a dragon's spine far into the distance in the direction he had pointed. It went on endlessly, just like the walls of a city. That is part of Sky Mist City's barrier. Junior sister Han Fei Zi, you should have not heard about this city before, right? You'll definitely receive a lot of attention once you enter the school, and when the time comes, you'll be sent out for training. You might be sent to guard Sky Mist City. This is the highest glory for us, the people of South Morning. Brother Su, you are the Divine General. It's fine for you to know some of the secrets of the land of South Morning. With your power and status, you will learn all about them sooner or later. The man named Chen cast a glance towards Su Ming with a kind smile. Su Ming's face remained passive as he looked towards the mountain range in the distance. He did not speak. He had no idea how much time had passed while he was in the relocation rune in Lake of Colors Mountain. He only knew that a long time had passed by until the buzzing sounds in his ears disappeared. When the light outside was no longer so bright he had to close his eyes, he opened them, and saw that he was at the top of this very mountain along with the other 4 people. Once they appeared, Freezing Sky Clan's Shuayu Yu brought out some golden stones, then started laying them out in a certain manner on the mountain. As the stones in her hand were placed down, the mountain was gradually covered in increasingly stronger golden light. We were fortunate to have obtained the 4-dimensional layer relocation rune. In the past, when we had to move from Han Mountain to Freezing Sky Clan, we had to use the runes in Sky Mist City. They are very slow. While Freezing Sky Clan might have been researching and using relocation runes as well, we could only relocate a short distance away and the price was great. If we relocated too many times, not only would we waste a large amount of time, our bodies would not be able to handle it either. We'd need to rest for a few dozen breaths before we could recover. Right, with the 4-dimensional layer relocation rune, we only need to relocate 8 times to return to Freezing Sky Clan. It's much more convenient. The man named Chen let out a sigh and looked at Shu Yu laying out the rune. Then he smiled towards Su Ming, Han Kangzi, and Han Feizi. Sky Mist City. Han Feizi's gaze fell upon the mountain range and she frowned. Looks like you don't know about the existence of this city, but that's normal. I only learned some of the secrets of the land of South Morning after I entered Freezing Sky Clan. Brother Su, have you heard of Sky Mist City before? The man named Chen smiled and looked at Su Ming. This was a person who would definitely be taken into the school, and his status in the school would definitely not be lower than Han Feizi's, perhaps even higher. That was why he decided to ease the tension between them and become acquaintanced with him. That was why he decided to talk about the things that outsiders would not know over here. I've never heard of it. Su Ming said calmly, looking at the mountain range in the distance. If that's the case, then I'll accompany both you and junior sister Han Feizi to visit the city walls on Sky Mist's mountain range and explain their function in detail, the man named Chen said and smiled before looking at Shu Yu laying out the runes on the ground. Shu Yu wiped off the sweat on her forehead. When she saw Chen Yubing looking at her, she smiled and spoke. There are still 10 hours before the rune is fully arranged and we can activate the second relocation. I only need junior sister Han Kangzi to stay behind and protect me. She had to calculate the entire process of laying out the rune and placing the golden stones at their rightful places. Shu Yu was not very familiar with this, and that was why she needed to be cautious, which inevitably led to her tiring herself mentally. All right then. I'll leave it to you, senior sister Shu. We won't go too far. If anything goes wrong, I'll come back as soon as possible. Chen Yubing gave her a nod and looked towards Han Kangzi. Junior sister Fang, I'll leave it to you. Han Kangzi had a solemn look on her face. Her gaze traveled to Su Ming before she nodded. Brother Su, junior sister Yang, this way. Chen Yubing lifted his hand and pointed in a direction before he moved forward and turned into a long arc that charged into the distance. Han Feizi's face remained cold and detached. White clouds appeared underneath her feet and lifted her up to chase after Chen Yubing. Su Ming lifted into the air unhurriedly. They turned into 3 long arcs and moved towards the city walls built on the mountain range in the distance. If we talk about Sky Mist City, then we have to talk about the barrier that separates the inner and outer parts of the land of South Morning. We live in the inner parts of the land of South Morning, and as of now, we are in the inner part. The inner parts are very large. Most of the western side of the inner parts belong to Western Sea Clan, and the north belongs to Freezing Sky Clan. However, compared to the world outside the barrier, the region we live in is only a small part of the entire land of South Morning. With Chen Yubing's voice in their ears, the 3 of them gradually approached the Sky Mist City's wall barrier at full speed. Once they were about tens of thousands of feet away from the wall with Chen Yubing's voice still echoing in their ears, a sudden great pressure spread out with a loud bang from the wall and charged towards them. This is Sky Mist's forbidden grounds. Trespassers are not allowed. A cold and detached voice shouted at them, the sound reverberating all around them like thunder, and the lingering echo buzzed in their ears. Han Feizi's expression changed, and she found that she could barely stand. The white cloud under her feet dissipated as well. Among the 3 of them, her level of cultivation was the weakest, and she was feeling terribly shaken. At that moment, a gentle wave of energy seeped into her body from her back and spread through her entire body, allowing her to regain her stability. Su Ming stood by Han Feizi's side and supported her with his right arm around her waist. A blush crept up her cheeks, but she did not refuse his kind will. Instead, she stood by his side and looked towards the wall from where the voice had come. I am Freezing Sky Clan's disciple, Chen Yubing. Greetings to the Uncle Master guarding the city. Chen Yubing also felt shaken, but he did not panic. It was clear that he had expected the voice to appear. He wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed respectfully in midair towards Sky Mist's wall located tens of thousands of feet away. I saw all of you at the relocation spot a long time ago. Why did you come here instead of staying there? the cold and detached voice asked them languidly. Uncle Master, by orders of the left preceptor, I went to Han Mountain City to choose new disciples, and we're coming back now. We passed by this place and wanted to see the barrier of the land of South Morning at close proximity. We won't move forward anymore. We can just watch from here. But Uncle Master, we would be glad if you made an exception for us, Chen Yubing quickly answered. The moment he finished speaking, Su Ming immediately felt an intimidating pressure charge towards them and sweep through him and Han Feizi. At the same time, a soft gasp of surprise echoed in the air. Then come here. If you want to take a look, then stand on the wall and look at the outer parts of South Morning. After a moment, the cold and detached voice appeared again, but this time, there was a warmer tone to it. Thank you, Uncle Master. The man named Chen was momentarily stunned before he quickly wrapped his fist in his palm respectfully as thanks. He turned around and cast Su Ming a glance. He was not a foolish person. He had brought up this journey to the wall because he knew that there was a leader from Freezing Sky Clan here defending the place and by right they should not be turned away. That was why he was using this to warm up his relationship with Su Ming. However, he did not expect this unknown Uncle Master to allow them to stand on the wall. This area belongs to Freezing Sky Clan. All the people defending the outer walls of Sky Mist City are leaders from Freezing Sky Clan. That's why we could get closer. If we were near Western Sea Clan's territory, then we would have been chased away a long time ago. If we showed any signs of disrespect, we might even have been killed. Su Ming cast a glance at Chen Yubing. Under his gaze, Chen Yubing lowered his head and laughed self-depreciatingly before he whispered. Honestly, I've never stood on the wall to see the outer parts of South Morning either. Su Ming averted his gaze and smiled as he said, Let's go. I'm very curious about this place. As the three of them got closer, an incredibly oppressive feeling gradually rose within Su Ming's heart. The wall on the mountain range had looked magnificent when he saw it from afar, and now that he was closer, it was even more so. It was hard not to feel tiny before the wall. It was so tall that if he stood at the foot of the mountain and looked up, he would feel as if it was connecting the sky and the earth. Han Feizi's breathing quickened. She looked at the wall on the mountain range before her and found that she could not imagine a mountain range like this surrounding the entire land of South Morning serving as its barrier. The distance of tens of thousands of feet shrank quickly, and the moment they stood on the wall, an intimidating pressure fell upon them. Under that pressure, Han Feizi's face turned pale and she looked as if she was about to collapse. If she was not standing beside Su Ming and he wasn't dissipating most of the pressure for her, she would not have been able to stand. Su Ming felt shaken to the core as he stood at the top of the mountain range and looked in front of himself. In his eyes, he saw a barren mass of land spreading into the distance. This land was also a part of South Morning, but it was outside the barrier. The earth was black, and there was a thick stench of blood in the mountain breeze. A desolate feeling filled the air. The barren lands, the boundless sky, the endless forest, the blurry shadows of the tall mountains, and even the vague roaring sounds from the distance contributed to this feeling. It was especially so due to a few skeletons scattered here and there on the ground. The bones were thick and bulky, and it was clear that they belonged to wild beasts. It was as if the lands inside and outside the barrier were two different worlds. By Su Ming's side, Chen Yubing was also shaken. This was the first time he stood on the wall and looked at the world outside the walls. I didn't expect that a divine general would be among the disciples the left preceptor took in this time, the cold voice said from behind them, and the space there distorted and a middle-aged man walked out of it. The middle-aged man wore a sackcloth and his hair was braided with lots of tiny braids. He was not huge and leaned on the thinner side. He looked quite ordinary, but his eyes were incredibly bright. We have reached the conclusion of Chapter 215. Su Ming has received an invitation that could change everything, but in the Shaman Woods, even a friendly gesture can hide a deadly trap. Thank you for choosing Panda AudioBooks as your sanctuary today. If you enjoyed the atmosphere of these chapters, please leave a like and share the video with your fellow seekers. Your support keeps our narration alive and allows us to follow Su Ming to the very end of his quest. What do you think is waiting for Su Ming at the end of this invitation? Share your theories below. Until our next session, stay vigilant, stay focused, and keep pursuing your own truth.